Life. How you guys doing this morning? Good. Here, awake. Hey, eighth graders, have you guys recovered from the camp out? Yeah? Yeah, no, not at all. Hey, if you guys don't know, we took all of the eighth graders that signed up for our eighth grade camp out. We talked about leadership. We went to Knott's Berry Farm. We did a big scavenger hunt at Knott's Berry Farm. And shout out to Aiden's team for getting the $100 gift card. That was awesome. But hey, I'm excited to be with you guys on this Sunday morning, this special cloudy day Sunday morning. I don't know if you're like me. I love a good cloudy day. Like if I had my way, I would have stayed home, like watching Harry Potter or something in the morning. It would have been awesome. If your family doesn't let you watch Harry Potter, that's okay. That's okay. Hey, I'm excited to be with you guys on this Sunday morning. If you and I haven't had the chance to meet, my name is Johnny. I'm on staff here in Wildlife. And what we're about to do is we're about to head into what we call a time of teaching. So a great way to follow along, especially if you are brand new, is with what we call a message note sheet. Should have been underneath your chair. Looks just like this. Why don't you grab one, wave it above your head so you know you have one. Hey, it's cardstock this morning. You're welcome. All right. Hey, this is a great way to follow along as we head into this time. If you notice on the front and the back, there's some fill in the blanks. Use that as a great tool throughout this time. The fill-ins are going to be on the screen behind me. So use that as a great way to pursue Jesus as we gather here this morning. Like Alex and Ryan said earlier, this morning's a little bit different. We're going to be watching baptisms via live stream from the worship center later on this service. And last night we watched about 15 people get baptized. And what's really cool is we get to hear part of their story, their testimony of how they were one way, they met Jesus, and now they are completely different. So it's going to be a cool time of baptisms later on. But right now we're going to continue our series. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead, close your eyes, bow your heads. Let's go ahead and let's pray and let's jump right in. So Jesus, thank you so much that we get to gather here. We get to do this. Jesus, we're incredibly thankful just for you, for who you are, your character, that you are a good God despite what is going on in our story, in our lives. Jesus, you're good. As we continue walking through Job's story, Jesus, we just ask through the power of your Spirit, would you open our eyes, open our ears to hear what you have to say this morning? Would eyes that communicate become so much less? So as you as our King, Jesus, would become so much more. And it's in your name. Amen. Hey, I want to tell you a story. Years ago, one of my good buddies, just for like anonymous sake, let's call him Dane because that's his name. Years ago, he was dating someone at the time. I know, pretty special. And he got broken up with, which was a huge bummer. And I remember as a good friend, I was trying to help him out in some way. But the situation in my context is that as he was recently broken up with, I recently started to begin in a relationship. So we're in different situations in our lives, in our stories. And I remember in that moment trying to help him out, but it was really rough because breakups are really hard, especially because you get really hurt. It just can get kind of messy and kind of sad. And I remember in that moment, in my story, I was feeling really happy. I just started in this relationship. Everything's going really well. But Dane, he was really sad. It was a really hard season for him. And I remember in that moment, I really wanted to help him out. I wanted to be there for him. But Wildlife, if I was being honest in that moment, I had no idea what to say to him. And I think a lot of us in this room, when we have someone hurting in our lives, whether it's a good friend, whether maybe it's a cousin or a neighbor, someone we really care about and we see them hurting, I think we feel the pressure to do one of three things. Is one, we try to fix it. We try to fix whatever is going on in their situation. If you have a friend that's hurting, you want to fix the problem. Or number two is we want to explain it. We want to help them understand why something has happened. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Or number three, we try to say the perfect thing. Like we try to sound super, super wise. But sometimes that is not what our friends need. That is not what they need, especially when they are hurting. But honestly, if we were to think about it, what it means to be a really good friend isn't saying the right thing, isn't trying to fix the situation or trying to explain it away. I think sometimes to be a really good friend simply starts with just showing up. You see, we've been in this series over the last couple of weeks called When It Doesn't Make Sense, God is Still God. And if you've been with us, we've been in this series walking through the book of Job found in the Old Testament. And what we're going to see in today's story of Job's life is that Job, man, everything was going against him. If you'll remember, he has lost everything. And three of his good friends show up as a good friend should. and they're with him. They're not saying anything because they just want to be present there for him. But then they start talking and things get crazy. They had good intentions. But what we're going to see is, man, things get really messy really quickly. Now, if you have a Bible with you, we're going to be opening it up to the book of Job. Job is found in the first half of the Bible, known as the Old Testament. And we're going to be in Job chapter 2. And what we're going to be doing this morning is we're going to be jumping around to different chapters of Job, because what we're covering is a big portion of this book, but we're going to be kind of summarizing what's going on in this story. But for our context, let's start off with Job chapter 2. Now, as you guys are turning there, if you are brand new, this story of Job is a crazy story. Job was described in the Bible as someone that is blameless, upright, someone that loves God and hates evil. But what we see in Job's story is God allows evil to happen in his life because I believe God trusts Job, but Job goes on this emotional roller coaster. But what we see is, even though Job has lost everything, like his family, his children, his land, his possessions, everything, he still brings the pain to God, and he brings honest pain to him. But let's continue going through this story, Job chapter 2, and we're going to be starting in verse 11. Now, if you were with us last week, you'll remember we had a guest speaker, one of my good friends known as DJ. He came and he walked us through chapter 2. But what we're going to do is we're going to be kind of starting at the end of chapter 2, because as Job has lost everything, we see 3 of his good friends, probably his best friends, come to his aid. So we're going to be kind of starting towards the end of verse 11 in chapter 2. So these 3 friends, I'll just quickly name them: Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. I'm going to name my kids these one day if I ever have more. But these 3 friends of Job come to him, and it says halfway through verse 11, it says, they had come upon him. They set out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. So these 3 friends of Job leave their homes, go out of their way. This is probably inconvenient for them, but they care about Job and they want to help him out. Verse 12 says, and when they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. If you remember last week in chapter 2 earlier, like Job gets boils on his skin, like all of these things. Again, God allows this to happen. If you remember, Satan's like, I want to tear apart Job's life. And God's like, hey, you can do whatever you want to Job, just don't kill the guy. So there's these boils that come on Job. He takes these clay pots and tries to scrape these boils off. Like Job is in a deep, dark pit of despair right now. So Job's probably pretty unrecognizable, but these friends see him from a distance. They could not recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. This is kind of like a sign of mourning the loss that Job has dealt with. And then verse 13 says, then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. You can underline those words, 7 days and 7 nights. So a full week goes by and they are with Job. And notice this: no one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. A good friend is someone that comes to your aid, or maybe you have a friend in your life. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. Sometimes just your presence, you just being there, speaks louder than anything you could possibly say. Let's continue jumping down in chapter 3. And then after this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Whoa. This guy's on an emotional roller coaster. He said, may the day of my birth perish, and the night that said a boy is conceived. That day, may it turn to darkness. May God above not care about it. May no light shine on it. Job is going through a lot right now. If you know what we see in this part of the Bible, man, Job's friends come to his aid, and Job is going through a lot right now. They show up, they cry with him, they sit with him, and they stay quiet. Now what I want us to do is I want us to jump to chapter 16. And as you guys are turning there, I'm going to quickly summarize the chapters we're kind of skipping just to time's sake of what's going on. So these 3 friends come to Job's aid. They don't say anything to him for 7 days and 7 nights. And then they start talking to Job. And what we need to understand for our context today is that they start accusing Job that all of this is going on in your life because clearly you must have done something wrong. Because if you remember they know about God's character, they know that God is a just God, meaning that when good people are doing good things, they are rewarded for their good things. That what we see in another book of the Bible known as the book of Proverbs. But people that do evil, they then receive what they deserve for their evil doing. These three friends know this, so they're assuming, Job, you must have done something wrong. You must have sinned in your life, which is why everything is going against you. But what we know is Job didn't do anything wrong. He is someone that loves God and hates evil. And we, again, don't fully know why God is allowing this to happen. So all these friends are saying, Job, you must have done something wrong. They start accusing Job. They start blaming Job for everything that has happened. And that's where we're going to pick up in chapter 16. So then after all this, Job responds, he says in verse 2 of chapter 16, hey, I've heard many things like these. You are miserable comforters, all of you. So he responds to his friends. He's like, hey, you're trying to bring me comfort and to help me out in this situation, but you are accusing me. You're blaming me for everything that has happened. Remember, Job has lost his entire family. All of his children have passed away, and they're basically accusing Job, hey, you're the reason your children have died. You're the reason that you have lost everything and your life is terrible right now. And Job responds and he's like, this is not helpful at all. Like, imagine for you in a moment like in math class, for example. Anyone love math? Okay, we need people like you. Anyone just don't like math? You're like me. You're like, why they add letters to number? Like, I don't know why. But imagine for a moment you have like failed a math class, or imagine you have failed math altogether, like I almost did in 7th grade because I didn't do my homework. That's on me, all right? But imagine you like fail math and your friends come to your aid and they're with you. They're like, you're just losing. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to go to UCLA now. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I'm going to become a plumber. That's okay. We need plumbers. But like, your life is like going terrible. Imagine your friends come to your aid, don't say anything for like 3 hours. And then out of nowhere, you're like, they're just responding. They're like, maybe you just suck at math. Like, that would be like the worst response a friend could say. Like, well, it's clearly your fault why this has happened. Job, in a similar way, responds, hey, you are miserable comforters, all of you. Will your long-winded speeches never end? What ails you that you keep on arguing? I also could speak like you if you were in my place. Basically, Job's like, hey, I could respond the way you're responding to me if you were in my situation. And then he says, but my mouth would encourage you. Comfort from my lips would bring you relief. Job is saying like, hey, if I was in your situation, I would not be accusing you. I would not be blaming you. I would actually be encouraging you and bringing you comfort. We'll talk about comfort later this morning. But these are some terrible friends, but hear me, they started out with good intention. They clearly care about their friend Job, but then they started sharing and talking in a way that was just not helpful. So what I want to do with our time is I want to walk through what we call the big thing. So the big thing there in your note sheet, your first big fill-in is this. When a friend is hurting, show up before you speak up. When a friend is hurting, someone that you care about, whether it's a cousin, a neighbor, someone you just care about deeply, especially a good friend, is hurting, show up before you speak up. Because what we see in this story is these friends of Job, they started out with really good intentions. They really care about Job, but then they started talking and it wasn't helpful, aka it wasn't what Job needed in that moment. So what I want to do with the rest of our time is I want to walk through what does it look like to be a good friend based on what we can learn from these three friends of Job. So there on your note sheet on the back, we have a section called When Friends Make It Worse. 3 ways to be a better friend. Number 1 is this. Show up before you speak up, which is pulled from our big thing or our big idea. Show up before you speak up. Now, what we see in this story is these three friends, again, we didn't have time to read all of it because it's multiple chapters, and we would be here for like an hour just reading the Bible, which actually would be pretty cool. But what we see is these friends, they started talking, but that's not what Job needed in the moment. Sometimes the best way to help someone is simply just being with them. That if you know of someone in your life that is just there for you, maybe you're going through something, maybe your parents are are fighting all the time, and you reach out to a friend of yours and they're like, hey, whatever you need, I'm here for you. That just brings encouragement into your bones. Job's friends gave him their presence. They came to Job, they cried with Job, they sat with Job, they stayed quiet with him for 7 days and 7 nights, a full week. Imagine your friend is losing it and you're just there quietly waiting, crying with them. That is a good friend. We might think of it kind of like this. Henry on the screen behind me, we might think of it like this. I need the perfect words, or I need to fix it. I need to make the pain go away. That when we have a friend that is hurting deeply, we think just like this. But sometimes the best way to be a good friend is just saying, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, let me know. And sometimes a friend may not know what they need in the moment. So the best way is just to be present with them without saying anything. The bottom line is a good friend shows up before they speak up. But what we see is Job's friends stopped sitting with him and then they started talking, which leads to our second point, which is this. Number 2 is be careful with your words. Be careful with your words. I think we could probably all agree, hey, words have a lot of power, right? You've heard that expression, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie, okay? Like, words hurt. Words are powerful. Words can be used to encourage us, to challenge us, bring us comfort, but also words can tear us down, whether we mean to do it or don't mean to do it. I assume Job's friends had no intention to tear Job down by accusing him and blaming him. But Job's friends basically said, hey, Job, everything that has happened, the reason your life is going terrible, well, it clearly must have been your fault. That is not how you respond to a friend that is hurting. Job's friends were doing 3 things on the screens behind me, Henry. Number 1 was this, as that they were correcting instead of listening. That Job was going through a season of his life, and these friends, instead of listening to him, they started correcting him. Well, you clearly you must have done this, you must have done that. That is not helpful. They also were accusing instead of bringing him comfort. Well, maybe you're the reason why your children died, or maybe you're the reason why all of your land and animals are gone forever. Like, it must have been your fault. Or the third one is, hey, they started blaming him instead of loving him. And then Job responds there in your note sheet. He says, hey, you are miserable comforter. Like, I love his honesty in that. It's like, hey, you're trying to bring me comfort, but you're really bad at it. All of you are terrible comforters. And I think in our story, in our context, I think we think sometimes like that. On the screen, we might think, hey, I mean well, so it's fine. Well, I didn't mean to hurt my friend with how I responded to him, so it's fine. Or, hey, if it's true, I can say it. They need my advice right now. Hey, Wildlife, what I've learned in my life is sometimes a good friend who is hurting doesn't need your advice. They just need you to listen to them and cry with them and be there for them. They had good intentions, but good intentions don't always equal good comfort. So we need to be careful with our words. When someone is hurting, we need to speak carefully. Which leads to number 3. Number 3 is this. You do not have to fix everything. You do not have to fix everything. That a great friend, a good friend, is someone that knows that they don't have to fix all the pain. A good friend is someone that comes into their situation and helps carry the pain with them. And that means maybe just being quiet with them. Maybe it means just sending them an encouraging text message, or getting on the phone with them, or going to a movie and just being with them can be a great way, but we don't have to fix everything. We cannot always fix the hurt. We can't always explain why it happened, why sadness must continue, or know what God is doing. We don't always know why, but a good friend knows, hey, we don't have to fix everything. We just need to be there for them, which leads to our catch this. Catch this is this. The goal of comfort is to help someone feel less alone. Like someone who is hurting deeply in your life, we want to help them out, right? We want to bring them comfort, someone that you care about. You don't want to see them in pain. So again, that's why we try to fix the situation. But a good friend is someone that like brings comfort so that someone doesn't feel less alone. A good friend is someone that listens, that cares, that stays close, and ultimately points people to Jesus. And sometimes that takes time. So Wildlife, I want to take the pressure off of you, is that when someone is hurting, someone that you care about, don't feel like you have to fix it all. Sometimes you just need to be there. Don't feel like you have to say the right things. You don't have to like bring all this wisdom. The best way to be a good friend is simply just, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, I'm right here. And then actually be there for them. Don't say that and then like ghost them. That would be terrible. Or like you block their number. Like, I'm here for you, delete. Like, that would be terrible, right? A good friend is someone that is there for them. You do not have to fix everything to be a faithful friend, which leads to our action step. So if you're brand new to Wildlife, an action step is basically, hey, how do we live this out? Based from Job's story, his life, how can we be a better friend this week? Here's your action step. Write this down. We need to be present before you try to help. Be present before you try to help. Now, right now, I want you to think of someone in your life, in your situation. Just think of someone right now that, like, you know they're hurting. Maybe they're just going through something right now, whether it's a friend, maybe it's a neighbor, it's a cousin, just someone you care deeply about. Maybe it's a parent, someone that is going through something and they're hurting deeply. So think about that someone right now and kind of just think of a way of how you can be present with them this week. Maybe it's simply just sending them a text message, or maybe just saying, hey, I'm here for you, or spending time trying to be with them. But before we give advice, we should be asking, hey, do they need me to listen right now? Like, do they need me just to listen to them? Do they need someone just to have ears to hear what is going on? Do they need encouragement right now? Like, maybe they're going through a deep situation right now, and you can just bring some encouragement. Maybe for you, it's you have a friend right now that their parents are fighting all the time, and there's talk of like divorce and stuff, and it's like really heavy, it's really hard. And in your story, unfortunately, your parents have divorced, and that was really hard for you. It was really terrible. Maybe you're still processing from it. But when you hear a friend of yours in a very similar situation from you, hey, you can go to that friend and just say, hey, I know exactly what's going on. I know what you must feel right now, what you must be thinking. You can encourage them because you've been where they are. So you can bring encouragement. Maybe do they need prayer? Do they need you just to sit with them? And you can simply just say stuff like, hey, I'm sorry, whatever is going on. I'm sorry this is going on. Hey, I'm here for you. And that can go a long way. Or maybe you're just honest. You're like, hey, I have no idea what to say right now, but I just want you to know I'm here for you. Or simply ask, hey, do you want any advice right now, or do you want me just to listen? These are simple ways where you can just be there for a friend. Job's friends started out really good with good intentions, but then they started accusing Job, and that's not what Job needed, because also their accusations were false. Job didn't do anything. Maybe some of us in this room, we feel like Job. Maybe you're hurting, you're confused, you're in a situation where simply life doesn't make any sense. Job's story reminds us that we can still bring all of our pain, all of our suffering to God, and God will listen to us. And we don't have to fake it. We don't have to have all the right answers. We can just be radically honest. If you'll remember, the word radical, how I would define it, is like, hey, we're not holding anything back. We're going to bring everything to God. And the truth is, God will not leave us. So as we wrap up, we have a final thought before we watch baptisms. Our final thought is this. Hey, when someone is hurting, we can do 4 things. Is number 1, we can show up. You're just going to be there. You don't have to say anything. You have to do it. You're just there. And you're probably like, Johnny, am I just sitting next to me? Yeah, you're just sitting there. You're just there because presence matters. And then number 2, which is a feeling. Number 2 is, hey, then we're going to listen well. Whatever is going on in there, we're just going to show up. And whatever they're going to share or process or cry about, you're just going to listen. You're just going to listen well. A great way to show that you're listening to someone is head nods or, that's good. Or, I understand. You don't want to just like stare at that. It's like, don't go on your phone. Could you imagine like, oh, that's terrible. That's awful. Like that would be a terrible friend. You're going to listen well. And then number 3 is you're going to speak carefully. And this is kind of tricky because you might feel that you should say something, but sometimes saying something can be the worst thing for your friend. That's what we looked at in Job's story, right? These friends thought, well, I should bring some wisdom. I should help him out. Well, Job, maybe it's your fault. That's not helpful. So we want to speak carefully. And number 4 is ultimately, hey, we want to point them to Jesus. Jesus cares about you. Jesus loves you more than you even know. And what's true is that Jesus wants to hear what's going on. So a great way to encourage your friend, if they are a believer in Jesus, or even if they're not a believer in Jesus, you can simply just say, hey, I'm here for you, but Jesus cares about what's going on in your life right now. Because I think that is so important for everyone to understand. It's like, hey, Jesus cares about you. Jesus loves you. He wants to hear what's going on. Talk to him about it. And what's beautiful is that the Bible describes as God is omniscient, which is a big, fancy theological word, meaning just like, hey, God knows everything. So God knows exactly what you're thinking right now. So I always describe it as like, hey, if God already knows what's going on, why don't you tell him about it? And don't hold back. Be radically honest with him. Hurting people don't need answers first. What they need is love, care, and someone to simply be with them. Let's go ahead and pray. Jesus, thank you so much that you're with us. That when we're hurting, we're going through a situation, or when our friends are going through a situation, you help model to us what does it mean to just be with them. Not saying the right words, not feeling pressure to do that, but just being there. Jesus, thank you for your word. Thank you that you modeled to us through your scriptures of what does it mean to be a good friend, how we can learn from bad friends, how we can be a better friend as we listen and follow to you. So Jesus, we love you, and help us be a better friend this week by being present before we try to help. And it's in your name, amen. Hey, well, right now we're going to watch baptisms, and I'm really excited